Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Arcane Assist. This is one we were both pretty excited for and prepared for a fair bit. This is our Haley2 versus the Dreamer. I'm really excited for this matchup. I've talked about it a bunch on a couple of podcasts on the internet already, and I think it's actually one of the places that I think you really see the Dreamer shine. I think she is probably my favorite GRYMKIN answer to CYGNAR in general, but being a good GRYMKIN answer to CYGNAR does not necessarily always mean you can beat Haley2.
Yeah, Haley2 is a caster that I've notoriously lost a lot of games to.
I think everyone has that story. Haley2 is
yeah.
In skilled hands, she is a force to be reckoned with. While we still acknowledge that she is a force to be reckoned with in any hands, and especially in skilled hands, it's important to note that we are playing with what was announced today as the preview of an upcoming rule change for Haley2. It's a change to her feat, where it will no longer affect the entire board. Instead, it will affect D3 plus 5 models in her control area.
So the important ones.
Yeah, I mean, I still think it gives her a lot of games, specifically into like an enemy brick, which is what I brought today. So I think she's still a very strong caster, but this is an opportunity for us to showcase for the very first time the change to Haley's feat.
Yeah, so why don't you go into your list first?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm playing the Dreamer, and I'm playing the Dreamer in Dark Menagerie. I think she's got a lot of game in Bump, and I think she's got a lot of game in Dark Menagerie, but this is what I'm featuring today. Throughout the course of the game, you'll see me drop one or multiple of her 3 Phantasms, but on the board I have deployed a Rattler, a Frightmare, 3 Skin and Moans, 1 Cage Rager, 2 Crabbits, both free from the Theme Force benefit, the Death Knell, 4 Gremlin Swarms, Lady Karianna Rose, and a minimum unit of Dread Rots.
So your list is kind of similar to the same list you played with the Child. How would you say this plays differently, even though you have a similar speed buff in the form of Mirage as opposed to Abuse, and you have a similar damage buff in the form of Manifest Destiny as opposed to Abuse?
Well, obviously, Manifest Destiny is very different from Abuse in that while technically a damage buff, it doesn't create the same like vectors of absolute damage. It creates spikes in a different way. It's also an accuracy buff. The Dreamer herself is not quite as unassailable as the Child, nor does she have the personal damage output that the Child has, but she brings an incredible control game with it. You don't have access to that Wrath, and you don't have access to the threat range extenders in Tantrum and Abuse. But you do have access to a pseudo-threat range extender in Abyssal Gate, the threat range extender that is Mirage, and you've got access to a lot of the Dreamer's really tricky tools. Well-placed Artifices can be a really big deal. The Artifice of Deviation granting cover to my models in it, and rough terrain to enemy models moving through it. And then you've also got Enfeeble, which is maybe my favorite spell on her card. It's kind of her signature spell. And if I can get off Enfeeble on a Storm Wall, it basically seals the game for me. It's definitely what Evan's probably trying to play around. And it's not something that I should, sacrifice my caster for, but it's a pretty powerful element of her toolbox. On top of that, she's got a different trump, which is not particularly useful in this matchup because so much of Evan's army is natively steady. But it's a pretty cool tool, and I really like the stuff that she brings to bear.
Sounds good. So I am playing Haley2. This list is kind of a take on just what's popular for Haley2 players currently, especially with the changes to battle engines. The Stormstrider is particularly popular, but we have in heavy metal a Squire, a Stormwall, a Thorn, and a Charger in Haley's Battlegroup, a Stormstrider, a Journeyman Warcaster with a Charger in his Battlegroup, and Jake's with a Hammersmith in her Battlegroup, as well as Strange Ways. Kind of just a classic list, all the fun tools that you normally see with Haley, especially that big old Stormwall, and the Stormstrider, which is kind of really good with its new shiny gun, and it's gaining power tokens and stuff like that. Yeah,
I think it's a really strong list. This is obviously a post-CID list because the Stormstrider didn't see a lot of play with Haley before, but I really like it in this list now. So without further ado, I think we're just going to jump right into the game. CYGNAR wins the roll to go first, and I chose the right-hand side that you see here. Basically, my argument was that I wanted the wall. I felt like it could protect my heavies a little bit against Stormwall guns, and I might actually put the Dreamer there. I've got the Artifice, so I can kind of move up a cover module gradually, so I can put the Artifice a little bit further forward initially. I also didn't love the giant piece of water in the front of that side, so I was happy to give that one to Evan.
Yeah, no, it's not a great piece of water. Haley's going to have to walk around it, but my 2 huge bases do not care at all. So that's where we're at. Basically, just walking up, putting out all the upkeeps, Sidekick on the Hammersmith, Arcane Shield on the Stormwall. I do put up Force Field on Haley. It's only kind of relevant this game. I basically just don't want to time bomb a thing and then have all fall down popped and then knock down Haley.
Yeah.
Because that would suck. Stormstrider rolls 3, gets all the power tokens, is there now. Stormwall runs over this water in such a way that it can block Haley. I mostly just want to focus on not dying, as that's usually pleasant. If you look in the bottom zone, just behind that pillar you can see peeking out is one of the chargers. The purple one is in Haley's battle group. The bluish one is in the juniors battle group. So that's where they are. They're both moving in, basically wanting to shoot up whatever goes on that flag off of it, as well as potentially in a later turn run their Discord with Junior.
Yeah. Big shout out, first of all, to Ian, our local XPG and volunteer coordinator, who actually made all of the terrain that we featured on the table today. He asked a lot of questions about what makes terrain playable and good, but also visually appealing, which is obviously something we're firmly interested in. So all of the hill pieces that you can see are kind of like train platforms as part of the sort of themed train set, and they're all magnetized to those bases, fully modular, removable, but they've got a decorative and appealing component. And the other thing that I pointed out to him that he did a really good job of capturing is that something like Elevation is great if it's got a removable piece but still is a template, but often that turns into just rapidly being a piece of 2D terrain. So the flat portion of these is actually pretty useful as a flat piece, even when that you don't have to remove that part to make it useful. And that rubble that you can see in the top right corner, those boxes are completely removable from that piece as well. So it's a little bit like how you put trees on a flocked base like we've got here, and you kind of still have something aesthetically appealing about them. I really like this train set. It's done great things for us. Dreamer activated, walked up to that wall that I talked about before. She threw out Mirage on a Skin of Moans and Artifice of Deviation, which is that big AoE ring that you can see there. I did not apparate any Gremlin Swarms on the first turn. I've kind of gotten in the habit a little bit of not apparitioning Gremlin Swarms on the very, very first turn of the game to kind of be like, oh, I forget that apparition's a thing, and then kind of lull my opponent into a false sense of their threat range. I don't know. Mind games are overrated in games like this, but sometimes I like to kind of move through those motions a little bit, test it out, and see if there's any theory there. Evan is invulnerable to them. He is fully aware of the threat range of a Gremlin Swarm by now, so I think we're fine.
They're a pain in the butt.
They sure are. The Cage Rager runs up, gets into Arcane Vortex range of the Skin of Moans, both, and up in front of the wall. I don't want its lack of Pathfinder to become a problem for it. And then my third Skin of Moans runs into the rubble as well. Body blocked a little bit by a Gremlin Swarm. Frightmare ran in there. And my Death Knell runs up. I'm a little bit afraid that the Death Knell has some vulnerability in this matchup, so I'm keeping it back a little bit more than I might otherwise. Part of the trick is if I've only got the one corpse, and it's difficult for me to collect corpses, if Evan does a good job of denying me corpse collection using E-leaps and lightning generators to kill my Dreadrots, I have some issues with the lack of corpses available to Skin and Moans to fuel them for extra pow, or to the Death Knell to extend its range. So you see I've got a couple of Gremlin Swarms there who are just base to base with 2 Dreadrots. I'm doing that to kind of use those Gremlin Swarms to insulate and protect those Dreadrots. So if Evan shoots one, I'm going to get its corpse, and that E-leap is going to start by going to the Gremlin Swarm. So it's just a little bit of insulating to try to protect my corpses, which are basically what I'm treating those Dreadrots in this list as. I moved the Rattler up pretty aggressively. I'm hoping to trade it for a Charger. It's on the hill, so hopefully it's a bit less vulnerable, but I did have to move it into range to be able to charge next turn, which means it may be in aiming range of those Chargers.
So on my turn, I'm working out where I want to put all my focus, because it's super important. This is the Alpha Strike turn. This is a turn where I kill something, or hopefully multiple things, and get to still be safe because of my feat. So I have a couple of questions, and I have to be very mindful of two particular arcana. All of them really, because we have all fall down, which is if I kill a thing, I get knocked down. It's not particularly relevant because I'm not entirely planning on doing some killy spells with Haley, and if she even does that and gets knocked down where she is, it's not a huge deal because she's pretty far back. I'm feeling very safe with her. However, Ruin, TK is a thing I would like to be able to get off, and Ruin will ruin that.
Yep.
And I'm also thinking about a couple things. How do I remove Gremlin Swarms? How do I safely remove Karianna, perhaps, this turn? I'm definitely going to try it, because if I can kill her on my feet turn, the +1/+1 she gives out is a lot less threatening than if I kill her on any other turn of the game. Because hopefully I don't lose anything on my feet turn because nothing's in threat range.
That is the trick. That's the Haley plan. I talked for a little while with Patrick Dunford about this matchup because he's been playing a lot of the Dreamer and is a very experienced Haley2 player. And he was saying that it really does come down to removing the Gremlin Swarms and removing heavies. And you want to his suggestion was that you remove 0 to 1 heavies on the Alpha Strike turn, and then on the feet turn you remove 0 to 1 heavies, and then hopefully you're up 2 heavies by the time you have to go to regular engagement, and that's enough of an attrition lead for you. But the Gremlin Swarms are a mess. Like they can do relevant damage against the pieces that you care about. They can really muck up the storm wall. They can be base to base with things you don't want them to be base to base with and give them nasty penalties.
Just to interject a bit, I am shooting the Rattler right here with some chargers. They both got to aim.
Yep.
They do a lot of damage and to kill it is the gist. But continue.
Yeah, no, and I mean, this is a positioning mistake on my part, and as described, we think this matchup really is about positioning in a huge way. I do not get a corpse for it because I did not leave it in range of the death knell. So I think in all ways that was an unfortunate loss. I don't basically get anything for it. It's a mistake, and I think Evan capitalized on the mistake really well.
Now I'm just moving Hammersmith up in front of the
Skin of Moans?
The Skin of Moans. This turn, I prop him outside of threat range of the Skin of Moans, which is something I don't necessarily have to do if I can manage to get the Skin of Moans in my feet range. Though at this point, I'm not exactly sure where Haley's going to end up. It depends on a couple of other things.
And you're not sure how many you're going to get for your feet too, right?
Exactly.
Because that's a variable that's important here. It's D3 + 5, so it's going to get many of the super important things, but it's tough to know what you have to protect. And then Hammersmith with Energizer from Jake's and Temporal Acceleration and TK. I'm in your threat range. You're not in mine, which is really, really useful. The other thing that's pretty relevant about that, of course, is Sidekick. My threat range extender is Abyssal Gate. When we talked at the beginning of the cast about the differences between the Child and the Dreamer has to get out there and hit something and in fact actually damage it with Abyssal Gate to place it within 3 inches. Sidekick prevents you from being placed. So that's a big deal for you.
Mm-hmm. So here I'm debating what to do with Thorn. Only has 1 focus, so its job is to run. It's going to run in such a way that I can TK a Skin and Moans out of the Artifice of Deviation, as well as get an Arcane Bolt off on Karianna Rose. Because I feel like this is the turn, if I'm going to kill her, that I have to do it. Because if I can get rid of both that ancillary attack that you can use on a Frightmare or just an additional attack on a Skin of Moans, that's huge, as well as Enrage is just a great thing to remove.
She's also Fury Management. She's got access to Shepherd's Call. And proccing Sorrowful Rampage on this turn would be way better than on a future turn.
So, before I move Haley and decide defeat, I'm going to throw out some spells through Thorn. First off is that Arcane Bolt. I have Future Sight, so I don't have to boost till afterwards. You have some decisions to make, so I flip it to you, because you can both Arcane Vortex or Ruin it.
Arcane Vortex comes at a pretty high cost because I do have to lose the corpse token on the Cage Rager, which means it ceases to be an Arc node, and it's unlikely to replenish that corpse very quickly. So I choose here to Arcane Vortex. Although, Evan's doing the smart thing and depleting my resources. But I don't use Ruin because I'm hoping that if I position the Dreamer a little bit more aggressively next turn, I'll be able to productively use Ruin and also strip upkeeps with it.
I TK the Moans. I don't boost. I just roll that hard 10, which is great. I didn't need a 10. I needed a 9. But we're there now. I go for the Arcane Bolt on a Gremlin Swarm just because I can.
I don't ruin this one because he doesn't have access to a boost.
I miss.
The reroll from the Squire also misses. Mm-hmm. It's tricky. Like there's a lot of things going on in this matchup, and I feel like knowing like choosing the wrong moment to Arcane Vortex or choosing the wrong moment to use one of your Arcana is how a GRYMKIN player can just rapidly lose a game.
So Haley walks up and feats. I roll a 1, so I get to
choose 6 models.
Choose 6 models.
Okay, some decision making, and you don't. This is very, very unlike a classic Haley2 feat. You don't move up really, really aggressively to feat. Like your feat is fairly conservative when used this way.
Mm-hmm. I don't have to because the only models I'm going to get in my feat are the ones that I need to because I don't need everything because I'm not going to affect everything.
And another relevant change of the feat is you had to activate the Squire first or stay within the Squire's 5-inch bubble to get that 2 inches of control because. Control area 18 is only useful for the effect of your feat when you actually pop the feat now, whereas before you could move the Squire up afterward.
Something worth noting, I did put my feet onto the Skin and Moans that I'm planning on killing this turn, just as a backup plan, because I didn't have really anything else relevant to put it on, except maybe a Gremlin Swarm, and I'd rather have that safety net as opposed to... just having a Skin and Moans that can run rampant.
Yep. You roll some damage here on the Skin and Moans with the Storm Wall. I think it's fair to say you roll kind of garbage.
Yeah. I missed my first attack, but I boosted just needing a 1. Hit it. Still didn't do some great damage. Doing all my little side cannons now. Roll really well there. Boost, roll 1, so I do 3 damage as opposed to... Yeah. It's not great. It's not going well.
At this point, you do very, very little damage with those tiny guns, and you don't do much damage with the big guns, so the Skin and Moans has quite a few boxes left.
Next up, Stormstrider. I realize it doesn't actually have firing arcs, just the base does, so I can actually stand and aim instead of aligning and just using my giant rate of fire 2 ball gun thing, lightning majiggy.
Yep.
So yeah, that's handy.
Technical term,
lightning majiggy.
Did you temp excel at this turn?
I did not. I thought about it, but I ran out of focus because I instead wanted to focus on killing Gremlin Swarms because they're just brutal little buggers. However, it has 3 of the little tokens. Boost, barely hit because it's your back arc and you're in my thing that gives me +2 to attack rolls.
Yep.
Just knock over that storm wall with magnets. Woo, fun.
Yeah, magnetized storm wall.
Don't do any damage with that one. Or sorry, I think I do. That was the hit roll. My bad. Do some damage there. Bounces 3 times.
Fortunately, that insulating Gremlin Swarm eats up one of the leaps. Kills a Dreadrot who doesn't pass his tough check, but is not collected as a corpse because it's with a lightning generated attack.
Not an attack.
Yeah, it's an enemy damage roll. It's not an enemy attack roll.
Oh, I forgot to mention, I did pot on the bottom flag with the storm wall, just to force Tim to come towards it. I figure he was planning on doing it anyway, but this is it's good habit forming exercises.
Yeah. At the end of that turn, you leave that Skin and Moans alive on 3 boxes.
3? I thought it was a lot more than that.
No, I'm sorry.
I thought it was 11.
Actually, there's 11 boxes left. Yeah.
That's more than 3.
Alive on 11 boxes. That's not great. That's we just put a green bead to mark the models that have been affected by the Haley feat. That includes both the Skin and Moans in the Artifice, the Skin and Moans that's back in the Rubble. It includes the Gremlin Swarm that's in the Artifice, which is kind of relevant because I sort of want them to walk and sabotage things.
And now you can only do one of those 2 things.
Affects the Cage Rager as well, who I usually want to run this turn for position.
Yeah. Although less effective for that Cage Rager this turn because it would normally want to run for position because it's an Arc node. And now it's not that.
Speaking of Arc nodes, there's a thorn.
So, important. Thorn is about 5 inches away from the skin and moans.
He's exactly 3 inches away from the Gremlin Swarm. He was 5 inches away when it apparated toward him.
Mm-hmm.
He was in that range because he needed to be in range for stealth, but the Dreamer wraith-walked this turn. So she moved through the Cage Rager and over the wall into the Artifice herself, and she
Abyssal Gated Thorn.
Abyssal Gated Thorn. She hit him, needing a 6 to hit, rolled exactly armor, and then used Future Sight to boost after rolling to do 2 damage to him, and pulled him in.
Yep.
So
Thorn's
I placed
not
him 3
having
inches.
a good day right now.
So now I don't have to deal with Thorn's front arc anymore. I don't have to advance to get into combat with him. So I'm really hoping to get Thorn here. Lady Karianna moves up and enrages the untouched Skin and Moans. Gremlin Swarm tries to do some damage to Thorn. I'm just looking at his grid, seeing where that Abyssal Gate did some damage, and if I can get close to taking out his movement or anything like that. I end up doing D3 plus 3 is 6 damage to Thorn's 2.
Leaves 2 boxes in movement.
Yep.
Which is okay. You just need to hit basically once and roll a 1 with a Skin and Moans, and you'll cripple that.
Skin and Moans will boost to hit, just in case, because Thorn can just dodge out and ruin entire plans all day.
Under manifest, or no,
Nope,
not.
no manifest,
No
just
manifest.
boosted. Yep.
Ow.
Boosted to hit, got a nice solid hit, and then this is going to be dice plus 3, because I'm enraged and I have 1 corpse. Dice plus 3 does, I think it's 11 damage to the 1. Takes out his movement, hits with the second initial, and kills Thorn. I replace him with a arc node of my own.
Yeah. You actually debated placing the mouse here for a minute.
I did. I thought if I placed the mouse, I could use its mark target ability so that the Frightmare could have a more accurate shot on the Hammersmith. But I ultimately decided that I wanted the Frightmare to be positioned a little bit more aggressively.
Dreadrot? Doing Dreadrot things?
Yeah, so the Dreadrot got a press forward order. One of the guys charged that Storm Pod. My hope is I can remove the Storm Pod and have that Gremlin Swarm come up and score the flag to put a little bit of scenario pressure on Haley. I'm not expecting that I get to win this game on scenario because it's just very, very difficult to do that against Haley. But I'm hoping that if I get an early CP lead, it can let me back off and keep my pieces safe in the late game.
It's more of a not lose on scenario.
Yeah, this is I'm trying to get up on the not lose condition. So the Gremlin Swarm here moved up and it punched Jake's Hammersmith a little bit. Sabotage is cool because it's an action, so you don't become corporeal doing it. The Frightmare just moved a little bit in that rubble, opting not to take the shot, as I talked about before. The forests here are really helping me because I can see the huge bases through them, and they can't see me through them.
Super important.
Death Knell moves up. It's a little bit pinned in there by Lady Karianna Rose. I just want to make sure that I've got all of my heavies like well within it, so that if Evan chooses to TK them out, they're still going to be getting that Warmth of the Grave aura for +2 armor. And I run a Gremlin Swarm to contest the top zone here, and also to be base to base with the Storm Wall.
Bottom zone.
Bottom zone, pardon me.
So this is the goes back to the beginning of the game where we were talking about how positioning is probably the most important part of this game. And that move of the Gremlin Swarm in between both zones and base to base with the Storm Wall is pretty crippling to my army. I have nothing on that side of the table that can get magic weapons except maybe Junior, except Junior has to go walk around the obstruction and then boost a hit an Arcane Bolt into melee. Not great.
And magic ability?
4? 3? 3. Worse. 3. Or I give the Stormwall magic weapons with Strange Ways.
And it spends its activation killing a Gremlin Swarm.
Yep.
Yeah, the Gremlin Swarms are really amazing. I think they do just win a bunch of matchups. Not this one, although they help this one a lot. But there are matchups out there where the Gremlin Swarms just are such a big deal. Against Amon Adraza, they end that game on their own. In a lot of situations, they can body block and prevent landing spots against your Skin and Moans, which is pretty amazing.
Yeah. They are just the most annoying models. Because here, I can do a couple things for the Stormwall. If I temp excel it, it gets an additional 2 inches of movement and can make another attack. But that means if you roll a 1 or a 2 on the Gremlin Swarm, I get -2 speed and can't make it into your heavies anyway.
Yep.
Or you give me -2 attack rolls, and I'm at 4 against a Skin and Moans, so I'm
defense 13.
9s to hit.
Yep.
Or I go from power strength, 20?
20 down to 18.
Down to 18, so that's dice -1 on a Skin and Moans. None of these things are pleasant, so I have to find a way to deal with that Gremlin Swarm before I activate the Stormwall, and my options are few and far between.
Yeah, we try a couple of things. You measure to see if Arlen is in range to give magic weapons to the Charger. He's got a really, really long command bubble because he can walk 5 and give magic weapons at a 7-inch range, but he's not quite in for that. And we look to see if there's a vector for Haley to do it, but minus Thorn, it's a tough position to be in.
Yep, it's rough. So there's a couple things to think about this turn. I also want to activate Jake's and then Energizer before I activate the Hammersmith, and that way he can move outside of base to base with the Gremlin Swarm, as well as create a charge lane so that she can stab with her magical daggers and hopefully get that one out of the way before the Hammersmith activates.
It's a little bit awkward because to do that, you basically have to put yourself into that forest, and the Hammersmith does not like the rough terrain.
Not even a little bit. Just awful. So here I'm just planning out, still in my allocation control phase, planning out what spells I want to cast with Haley, planning out what I have to do with Jake's. This is going to be a think tank turn, just because I have so much to do and so much to deal with and so many ways that I could possibly mess it up.
There are, it turns out, a lot of ways to mess up Haley. She's a really complicated caster with a really, really deep toolbox. And even post the changes, I still think she's got a lot of flexibility into matchups like this.
Yeah, it's hard to take a feat like hers and make it unusable. And they certainly did not. It's still brutally effective at just neutering whatever you need to.
I mean, what I got to do on my turn is functionally very similar to what I would have been able to do on my turn under a regular Haley feat turn.
Exactly. So, we're still thinking. Yeah, there's just so much to think about. Basically, I want the Storm Strider to go in and kill that Skin and Moans. It'll charge. Here we go. It'll charge, so it gets the advance, so it rolls those 3 power tokens. Perfect. This isn't in the back arc anymore of the Skin and Moans, so I do want to boost my charge roll.
One of the things I think is kind of cool about the Storm Strider is it is dual attack, so it can shoot that gun and charge. But it also it has lightning generator off its POW 13 stomp now.
Yeah. So roll 3 jumps into the Lancer-ish. Pumpkin Lancer.
Pumpkin Lancer. Excellent. That's his new name.
Don't kill him. Leave him on 1 box. Do some damage to the Skin and Moans. 3. 8 boxes left. Now I'm on to the guns. I boost a hit with the gun because I don't trust my dice.
That's fair.
I roll boxcars.
Yep. There's the boost. Also
leap onto the Lancer. Roll dub 6s, so that's 5 6s in a row.
Yep.
Against the Skin and Moans, does 5 more damage.
It's pretty good. Pretty good. The Skin and Moans, I believe, is now on 3 boxes.
I hit it. Sorry. Do not enough damage.
Yeah, so now that Skin and Moans, my apologies from before, that Skin and Moans is on 3 boxes now.
Yep.
So that's what this ended up being, is three boxes.
This Charger is going to go. Don't do this. I get super lucky here. I powerful attack the Dreadrod on the hill, or I just shoot it.
Oh.
Tim makes the tough check. I go to do it again, and then I realize when I'm about to drop the dice that if I kill this Dreadrod, he uses sacrifice and heals his Skin and Moans to full. So I immediately stop what I'm doing because I'm not a moron. Sometimes. I'm sometimes not a moron.
I was like, yep, Dreadrot, tough check, and he passed the tough check, and I'm like, poker face? And Evan's like, nope.
Saw right through that.
Sure did.
Thank God. So Haley's the only thing that can go in and poke this Skin and Moans to death. She does it because she rolls an 8. I boost after rolling need anything, and it dies. So you take the Fury. I give the Death Knell a corpse. I TK myself behind the forest, so I'm less likely to get horribly murdered. And I go to Temp Excel the Stormwall, and you ruin it.
I do. I ruin it. That's just the Dreamer. She ruins some things. So I proc Ruin, which is the Arcana that when you target a model in my control area with a spell, you target the Stormwall with Temp Excel, which can only be cast once per turn. Perfect target for it. And I say, not only do you not get that, but I'm going to remove Arcane Shield and I'm going to remove Sidekick.
Yep.
It's pretty good.
So now, I guess Strange Ways activates,
Jake's charges the Gremlin Swarm.
Jake's charges the Gremlin Swarm and energizes.
She's Mat 6. He's defense 13 with Annoyance.
She misses
her
sword.
8s, misses the sword, makes an attack with her dagger, which is also magical.
POW 7 does not kill.
Does not kill him. Would have needed a 10 to kill him there, but still, it's a very real possibility.
It's important. Like this was a important move for Jake's to do, and unfortunately, it doesn't work out. I feel like I maybe should have kept one more focus on her instead of allocating to the Hammersmith, and just
it would have denied you the ability to energize her, but maybe the Hammersmith just runs and does nothing. Like maybe that's its activation.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. Next up, Arlen gives magic weapons to Stormwall because it's the only thing that can kill this stupid Gremlin Swarm. I hate these things.
They are very, very strong in this theme force.
Here, I'm measuring the junior. See if I can walk up and just, get in stealth range, Repo 3 onto the flag, Arcane Bolt a Gremlin Swarm, and I could Arcane Bolt it, but I won't get onto the flag, so it's not really worth doing. So I instead decide, screw that plan, I walk back in Arcane Shield to Stormwall.
Good plan, but I like to make you work for it, right? I mean, that's the benefit of the Arcana is they're not necessarily game winning and devastating all the time, but they are always a thing that I force you to work a little bit harder to get.
Yep. So now that Sacrifice is gone and there's nothing really to heal, even if we're on the table, Charger goes, just chump kills some dudes. And the mopiest Stormwall activation of all.
Yep.
Is about to happen.
Yeah, the Stormwall's not having a good time. It's still going to get sabotaged, and it has magical melee attacks and magical ranged attacks.
Yep,
so
magic weapons.
It's hopefully going to kill that Gremlin Swarm, but what else will it kill?
So you give me -2 damage.
Minus
I'm
2
like,
damage.
Okay, fine. I back the Stormwall up and turn it and start shooting the Gremlin Swarm. Because I choose to use my guns just so I can maybe get some other stuff in. Or I will in a moment. There we go.
Yeah, there's a little bit of debate about this.
So I did not pay attention to the arcs on my Stormwall. So the middle of that is just going down the forest. This is stupid. Don't do this. I say again this game. That measuring there was just debating where the pod can go. I'm debating not throwing it down at all because there's not a great place for it. I decided to just chuck it in front of the Charger in 4 inches of the flag. It contests in addition to the Charger contesting. It blocks charge lanes. It's just a thing that's there. It's not magical, so it doesn't get to make a damage roll against that Gremlin Swarm. However, the one shot I make with my gun misses. I boost and hit. Rolls a 3 for damage.
This is a POW
8.
So that does not do any damage to the Gremlin Swarm.
I decide to boost after, and still don't kill the Gremlin Swarm.
You in fact do 1 damage to it.
I don't have it in the center arcs, so I can't use my other 2 shots from the other gun. And I also have nothing else in that arc I can shoot. I can maybe seal that Gremlin Swarm except for the fact that it has stealth. So I'm just going to shoot the big gun at it and kill the Gremlin Swarm because, oh my god, screw Gremlin Swarms.
So a full Stormwall activation, and it gets to kill a single Gremlin Swarm. Working as intended.
Left-hand gun can't see anything else.
So, I mean, that's more your mistake than it is the objective strength of Gremlin Swarms, but it really does
Correct.
put you in an awkward spot. And I think one of the things that's powerful about GRYMKIN is there's a lot of things Evan can do to win this matchup, but until having played it a number of times, it's very hard to overcome the tilting that's associated with just suddenly having your game plan go awry.
Yep.
And even the Gremlin Swarms themselves, just rolling that die at the beginning of your activation, you have a whole plan for that activation, you're in that activation, and now it's changed.
Yep. So we realize here after Tim scores 3 at the beginning of his turn that I hadn't activated the Hammersmith. The Hammersmith has nothing to do but run, so it just runs into the zone and we correct the score. Or we will momentarily.
Yeah, it's not a big deal because the Hammersmith didn't have a charge lane to the Skid and Moans because of where the placement of the rough terrain was. It's got something like a 7-inch move, and like unless Haley comes by and TKs it or something fancy like that,
Which
she's already
she
active.
couldn't have done.
Yeah, exactly.
So instead, you just like, okay, Gremlin Swarm hugs Hammersmith forever now. What's the plan this turn?
Well, the hope... I'm not Wraithwalking this turn because I Wraithwalked last turn. And I don't need to upkeep Mirage, so I'm not going to bother with that. And I will upkeep Artifice because it's in a pretty good spot for the Dreamer to just hang out. Because you did move that Hammersmith to the... as we wreck the Storm Wall.
I broke a Storm Wall.
As we look at the scoring with the Hammersmith having moved into the zone, I was in a position to like move really, really aggressively to just try to take scenario. I don't think that's as much on the table as I previously expected. So instead, I'm going to move the Dreamer up, cast Manifest Destiny, and send a Skin and Moans in on the Stormstrider. So first the Frightmare activates, shoots it, does a bit of damage to it. Then the Dreamer activates. She's going to stay in the Artifice of Deviation, but she's moved up a little bit. And she's going to spend 3 to cast Manifest Destiny. That's all she needs to do. She's happy there for this turn. Manifest Destiny is one of my favorite spells. I played it a lot in Mark II with Thagrosh 2. It's a really, really powerful effect, and I love playing it. It just lets you cheat dice all over the place.
Yeah, it's a lot like playing Vlad 1 and having Signs of Importance, except this is exclusive to your War Beasts.
Yeah, and it's a little bit cheaper, and it's a bit more flexible. I mean, Signs of Importance is really powerful, but it feels like it's all Vlad does sometimes.
Correct. This is a lot more... Sorry, go on.
I was going to say, the Skin and Moans cast Lurker and charged the Stormstrider. It's going to get pushed back, but I deliberately charged in a vector that put me in rough terrain, so I get pushed back a little bit less, and I'd still get both my initials, because I didn't quite have enough distance to go base to base. I boost damage on the second initial, because I know I'm not going to get that many attacks, and I finish off the Stormstrider.
This is a spooky position to be in.
Well, hello there, Haley. We do mention this here, but forget to mark it. I replaced the Stormstrider with a Bronzeback Phantasm, the like large base one. You're allowed to replace Phantasms with anything of a smaller base size.
Which, for huge bases, would include any of them.
Anything. So, use the Phantasm. It moves behind Haley and bulldozes her forward. Says hello to her in a happy way. The Death Knell moves up, gives corpses to the Skin and Moans. Karianna gives it 2 more damage from Enrage.
Does not charge.
It does not charge. It chooses to advance into Haley because I know she's got set defense with that spear. Boost to hit with Manifest Destiny. Gets a big hit. Does okay for damage. Rolls a 14.
I get to reduce it to 9.
To 9, yep. And my second attack kills Haley.
Yep. And that's the game.
So we're going to talk a little bit about the matchup for a few minutes afterward, and based on some fan feedback, we're going to leave our packing up process here in the video, so you get to see us unpack some models and talk a little bit about the matchup. I love the Dreamer. I think she's incredible. I think she's deep, and I think she's technical. I think there's a lot of counterplay for her, and I've been in a couple of discussions recently where I feel like people have talked about GRYMKIN as if they're Haley2 level powerful. And I think that's a mistake. I think more and more in Mark III specifically, with the concept of CID and the concept of dynamic updates, we've seen people talking about the game as if complaining about something or being critical of something for being too strong and having it changed is the only way to adapt and the only way to win games and to kind of equalize your place in the metagame. And I think GRYMKIN are really right now an example of a faction that if you focus a lot of attention on them and you learn the matchups well, they're a very, very beatable faction. They just have a lot of dark horse potential right now.
I agree. And I think that GRYMKIN not only bring something unique to the table, they have both casters that are very straightforward. You know what they're going to bring to the table, and you know what they're going to try to do, as well as casters that are incredibly complex, that will take hundreds of games in order to master, and only once you've gotten to that point will you be able to play them at a incredibly high competitive level. And I think that's what a faction that's new and limited like GRYMKIN needs to be.
Yes.
And I think they've done a pretty fantastic job at doing that.
I think there has to be something appealing to have people jump on board, and there has to be something really, really deep so the Jason Watts of the world can master them and be somebody who can win Gen Con with Convergence.
Exactly. So, and in terms of what has changed for CYGNAR, with Haley getting nerfed, I think it was necessary for the fact that Haley felt a lot like she had a lot of these complex decisions that she could do. She had to make her huge plan as to how to get the Alpha Strike and then get another Alpha Strike. And part of that was just, okay, I press feet button, and now it's, okay, these are the important choices I have to make in order to not lose pieces on my turn. I have to actually know what my opponent's models do, know which ones are going to cause me troubles, and pick those ones as opposed to everything.
Yeah, it makes her a harder caster to play, and it probably deepens CYGNAR's roster of casters that are worth considering, because right now it's I play Haley2, assuming a very, very competitive level of play and that you're going to a convention with the intent to win. Right now it's often I play Haley2 and what pairs well with her. So now casters that don't necessarily pair well with Haley2 are worth considering.
Yep.
So that's our episode for the day. I hope you guys really enjoy it. As I say, this is one that I was really, really excited to record and to be a part of. And we'll be featuring more Dreamer after we finish our Vlad series. I think we've concluded that we will be doing...
A lot of people have a lot of excitement for her, as well as there's a lot of ways she can be played. Like, Tim's been playing around with her in both Dark Menagerie and Bump in the Night, so I feel like we're going to have to see her in both themes.
Absolutely. I agree. If you guys like the video, please subscribe to our channel, share it with your friends, tell folks about it. We continue to do this only because you guys love it so much and are so supportive of us as a community. We love sharing what we do and the content that we make, so thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you very much, guys. That's all we have for today. Tune in next time, and we'll show you some more videos.